Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Would You Read It Challenge video for November 2025. The Would You Read It Challenge is a meme brought to BookTube by @2Brody. The prompt is to pick a variety of books by whatever metric you'd like, and then share the first sentence with your audience and then ask them if they'd like to continue with the books. I decided that one sentence is just too small for me to deal with. You know, you can't get a good feel of a story just by one sentence, so I elongated it to the first few paragraphs or so, and for my metric, I have been using old ballots of the BookTube Prize. So, the BookTube Prize was started by Robert Sheard back in 2019, and it's a way for the literary book community to come together to judge the best in fiction and nonfiction, literary fiction, I should say, and they've all been published in English in the US the year before. This is a year-long pursuit. We start at the very beginning of the year, if you sign up as a judge, to decide on the long lists, and then we have 4 rounds where we whittle down the long lists to winners and runners-up. And on that note, we are currently in an off season of the BookTube Prize, but Robert recently put up a video for how to sign up as a judge for 2026, and I will link that down below, because this is a wonderful way to expand your reading and get to communicate a bit with the rest of the bookish community. Anyway, I am going in chronological order, just looking at the fiction ballots each year, and this month I am up to the 2022 prize and the final ballot of the long list, which was Group H. So with that, I will now have officially at least considered every fiction book in contention back in 2022. And when it comes to this particular ballot, I've actually read 2 of the books on my own, and then the other 4 are pretty new to me. I mean to say that all I've read of them is the first few paragraphs I'll be sharing with you. And without further ado, I'm going to go read through the list, then give my thoughts, and then please invite you to share your own. Okay, so I'm starting with book number 1, The Argos, Mission Year 65, Day 307, Inside Vault 1. Constance. A 14-year-old girl sits cross-legged on the floor of a circular vault. A mass of curls halos her head. Her socks are full of holes. This is Constance. Behind her, inside a translucent cylinder that rises 16 feet from floor to ceiling, hangs a machine composed of trillions of golden threads, none thicker than a human hair. Each filament twines around thousands of others in entanglements of astonishing intricacy. Occasionally, a bundle somewhere along the surface of the machine pulses with light, now here, now there. This is Sybil. Elsewhere in the room, there's an inflatable cot, a recycling toilet, a food printer, 11 sacks of Nourish powder, and a multi-directional treadmill the size and shape of an automobile tire called a perambulator. Light comes from a ring of diodes in the ceiling. There is no visible exit. Arranged in a grid on the floor lie almost 100 rectangular scraps Constance has torn from empty Nourish powder sacks and written on with homemade ink. Some are dense with her handwriting, others accommodate a single word. One, for example, contains the 24 letters of the ancient Greek alphabet. Another reads, "In the millennium leading up to 1493, the city of Constantinople was besieged 23 times, but no army ever breached its land walls." She leans forward and lifts 3 scraps from the puzzle in front of her. The machine behind her flickers. And that was from Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. Book 2. Cow 1. Tiger Bay, February 1952. "The king is dead. Long live the queen." The announcer's voice crackles from the wireless and winds around the rapt patrons of Berlin's Milk Bar as sinuously as the fog curls around the mournful street lamps, their wan glow barely illuminating cobblestones. The noise settles as milkshakes and colas clink against Irish coffees, and chairs scrape against the black and white tiled floor. Berlin hammers a spoon against the bar and calls out with his lion tamer's bark, "Raise your glasses, ladies and gentlemen, and send off our old king to Davy Jones's locker." "He'll meet many of our men down there," replies old Ismail. "He better write his apology on the way down." "I bet he wrote them out on his deathbed," a punter cackles. Through the rock and roll and splitting espresso machine, Berlin hears someone call his name. Maxi Thierry? He asks as Mahmoud Matan pushes through the crowd at the bar. I said, get me another coffee. Berlin catches his Trinidadian wife's waist and steers her toward Mahmoud. Lou, sort this troublemaker another coffee. Ranged along the bar are many of Tiger Bay's Somali soldiers. They look somewhere between gangsters and dandies in their cravats, pocket chains, and trilby hats. Only Mahmoud wears a Homburg pulled down low over his gaunt face and sad eyes. He is a quiet man, always appearing and disappearing silently at the fringes of the sailors or the gamblers or the thieves. Men pull their possessions closer when he is around and keep their eyes on his long, elegant fingers. But Tahir Grass, who was only recently released from Whitechurch Asylum, leans close to him, looking for friendship that Mahmoud won't give. Tahir is on a road no one can or will walk down with him, his limbs spasming from invisible electric shocks, his face a cinema screen of wild expressions. And that was from The Fortune Men by Nadia Mohammed. Book 3. We should have known that the end was near. How could we not have known? When the sky began to pour acid and rivers began to turn green, we should have known our land would soon be dead. Then again, how could we have known what they didn't want us to know? When we began to wobble and stagger, tumbling and snapping like feeble little branches, they told us it would soon be over, that we would all be well in no time. They asked us to come to village meetings, to talk about it. They told us we had to trust them. We should have spat in their faces, heaped upon them names most befitting, liars, savages, unscrupulous, evil. We should have cursed their mothers and their grandmothers, flung pejoratives upon their fathers, prayed for unspeakable calamities to befall their children. We hated them and we hated their meetings, but we attended all of them. Every 8 weeks we went to the village square to listen to them. We were dying. We were helpless. We were afraid. Those meetings were our only chance of salvation. We ran home from school on the appointed days, eager to complete our chores so we would miss not one word at the assembly. We fetched water from the well, chased goats and chickens around our compounds and into bamboo barns, swept away leaves and twigs scattered across our front yards. We washed iron pots and piles of bowls after dinner, left our huts many minutes before the time the meeting was called for. We wanted to get there before they strode into the square in their fine suits and polished shoes. Our mothers hurried to the square too, as did our fathers. They left their work unfinished in the forest beyond the big river, their palms and bare feet dusted with poisoned earth. The work would be there waiting for us tomorrow, our fathers said to us, but we'll only have so many opportunities to hear what the men from Pexton have to say. Even when their bodies bore little strength, after hours of toiling beneath a sun both benevolent and cruel, they went to the meetings because we all had to be at the meetings. The only person who did not attend the meetings was Conga, our village madman. Conga, who had no awareness of our suffering and lived without fears of what was and what was to come. He slept in the school compound as we hurried along, snoring and slobbering, if he wasn't tossing, itching, muttering, eyes closed. Trapped as he was, alone in a world in which spirits ruled and men were powerless under their dominion, he knew nothing about Pexton. And that was from How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mbue. Book 4. Judges. You do not yet know us. You do not yet understand. We who are from the dark speaking in the 7 voices, because 7 is the only divine number, because it is who we are and who we always have been, and this is law. By the end you will know, and you will ask why we did not tell you sooner. Did you think you are the first to have asked that question? You are not. There is, however, an answer. There is always an answer, but you have not yet earned it. You do not know who you are. How could you possibly reckon with who we are? You are not lost so much as you are betrayed by fools who mistook glimmer for power. They gave away all the symbols that held sway. The penance for this is lasting. Your blood will have long been diluted by the time reason finally takes hold, or the world itself will have been reduced to ash, making memory beside the point. But yes, you have been wronged, and you will do wrong, again and again and again, until finally you wake, which is why we are here, speaking with you now. A story is coming. Your story is coming. And that was from The Prophets by Robert Jones Sr. Book 5. 1. Mehar is not so obedient a 15-year-old that she won't try to uncover which of the three brothers is her husband. Already, the morning after the wedding, and despite her nervous, trembling hands, she combines various amounts of lemon, garlic, and spice into their side plates of sliced onions, and then attempts to detect the particular odor on the man who visits later the same night, invisible to her in the dark. It proves inconclusive, the strongest smell by far her fear, so she tries again after overhearing one of the trio complaining about the calluses on his hands. Her concentration is fierce when her husband's palm next strokes her naked arm, but then, too, she isn't certain. Maybe all male hands feel so rough, so clumsy, eager, and dry. It is 1929. Summer is erupting, and the brothers do not address her in one another's presence. Indeed, they barely speak to her at all, and she, it goes without saying, is expected to remain dutiful, veiled, and silent, like the other new brides. Spying from her window, she sees only the brothers' likeness, close in age. They share the same narrow build, with unconvincing shoulders and grave eyes, serious faces that carry no slack, features that follow the same rules. The three are evenly bearded, the hair trimmed and short and tight, and all day they wear loose turbans cut from the same saffron wrap. Most hours, the brothers will be out working in the fields, playing, drinking, while she weaves and cooks and shovels and milks, until those evenings when Mai, their mother, says to her, raising a tea glass to grim lips, "Not the china room tonight." This is the third time Mehar must finish washing the pewter pots at the courtyard water pump, and, rather than join the women, take herself to the windowless chamber at the back of the farm. On the bed she holds her knees close, seeing no point in lying down straight away. 5 days married, 5 nights since she'd first lain in waiting in the pitch black, shuddering from arms to toes, hoping he wouldn't come to her, and praying there might be blood. The day before the wedding, Mehar's mother had folded a tiny blade into her daughter's hand. "Cut your thumb to be sure." Mehar hadn't done that, hadn't needed to, and Mai had been outside afterward, waiting for the sheets. Her husband had said nothing to Mehar on that occasion, and little more on the next. Would he say more today? She wonders. And that was from China Room by Sanjeev Sahota. And finally, Book 6, Ma. The moment the metal bark speaks her name, Amor knows it has happened. She's been in a tense, headachy mood all day, almost like she'd been warning in a dream but can't remember what it is. Some sign or image just under the surface, trouble down below, fire underground. But when the words are said to her aloud, she doesn't believe them. She closes her eyes and shakes her head. No, it can't be true what her aunt just told her. Nobody is dead. It's a word, that's all. She looks at the word, lying there on the desk like an insect on its back with no explanation. This is in Miss Starkey's office, where the voice over the tannoy told her to go. Amor has been waiting and waiting for this moment for so long, has imagined it so many times that it already seems like a fact. But now that the moment has really come, it feels far away and dreamy. It hasn't happened, not actually, and not especially to Ma, who will always be alive. "I'm sorry," Miss Starkey says again, covering her big teeth behind thin, pressed-together lips. Some of the other girls say Miss Starkey is a lesbian, but it's hard to imagine her doing anything sexy with anyone. Or maybe she did once and has been permanently disgusted ever since. "It's a sorrow we all have to bear," she adds in a serious voice, while Tanny Marina trembles and dabs her eyes with a tissue, though she has always looked down on Ma and doesn't care at all that she's dead, even if she isn't. Her aunt goes downstairs with her and waits outside while Amor has to go back to the hostel to pack her suitcase. She's been living here for the past 7 months, waiting for what hasn't happened to happen, and every second of that time she's hated these long, cold rooms with their linoleum floors. But now that she has to leave, she doesn't want to go. All she wants to do is lie down on her bed and fall asleep and never wake up. Like Ma? No, not like Ma, because Ma is not asleep. Slowly, she puts her clothes into the suitcase and then carries it down to the front of the main school building, where her aunt is standing, looking into the fish pond. "That's a big fat one," she says, pointing into the depths. "Have you ever seen such a big goldfish?" And Amor says she hasn't, even though she can't see which fish her aunt is pointing at, and none of it is real anyway. and that was from The Promise by Damon Galgut. Okay, I guess I'll start quickly with the two books I've read, starting with book number one, Cloud Cuckoo Land. I, in fact, read this on my own in tandem with a similar book. These are, I think, nested stories where there are, in fact, several stories in different timelines that interlink with each other that make up, some sort of message of the book. And Cloud Cuckoo Land and another book were released the same year, so I compared and contrasted them, and I'll link that blog post down below. And I did like Cloud Cuckoo Land. It's a lot about the love of literature and what it is to remember the past. And you can certainly see some remembering the past in this section where Constance is looking to the fall of Constantinople. Spoiler alert for one of the other storylines. This one is the future storyline, which maybe you could kind of tell just by, all of the, new words for things. I think it's difficult to kind of try to get into a story like this because it's so grand that it obviously takes a while to understand, what it's about. And frankly, I think the future storyline, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, was the weakest for me. So, alas, I'm glad I went forward with it though, because there's a lot more in this book. And the second book I read is book 3, How Beautiful We Were by Mbolo Mbue, which I actually read in tandem with the BookTube Prize Finals in 2022, although I was reading nonfiction that year as my official ballot, but I had an extra time for once, I think, in my reading schedule, so I decided, that was one of the, fiction finalists that interested me the most that I hadn't read yet. And I think, it's a book that's, really important and moving about, what industrial capitalism can do, to a certain place, like they're, poisoning the earth in this village where these people come from. And there's a cost to that. And, we're taking, a, plural person, look into what that cost is to a community and looking at it particularly from the eyes of the youngest and maybe most vulnerable, the children. So, this sort of writing, it's a little flowery to me. Like, I prefer just to get into the story. I worry about preachiness a bit, but I do think it was a strong story overall. I'm going to jump back up to book number 2, The Fortune Men by Nadia Muhammad, which I think out of all of these maybe interests me the most. I don't know. I mean, I've gone a little back and forth because I at first maybe get a little too stuck in, well, this is an interesting time period, when Queen Elizabeth II came to power. But obviously that's not what the story is about. It's about, these characters, that are in her, well, her subjects, I suppose, I'm assuming, are her subjects. And there are a fair bit of few names and things that are thrown out, so I do find it a little bit overwhelming at first, like, because first I'm like, we're focusing actually on the coronation, but no, we're focusing on this bar, but no, we're focusing on groups of people in the bar, and it feels like Berlin would be the main character, and I don't know if we know the most about him at all. We kind of know he's sort of a person who's in charge of the bar, and he has a wife, but a Trinidadian wife, but I don't know, I'm intrigued, but, I still feel a little overwhelmed by what's happening on this page. I'm going to assume, hopefully, things will, pan out and, we'll get more context. Then we go to book 4, which really is, I think, way too much pie in the sky for me. I do like sort of the allusion to prophets, in biblical parlance, in the Bible, prophets tend to come and spew warnings like this one about the dangerous times that the people are living in and how they have to repent, which I feel like this sounds like, but, I don't want to be lectured like this. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why these people did anything bad, so I don't know. I just realize this is a big setup and it'll work for some people, but I don't think it really works for me. And that was, if I didn't say, The Prophets by Robert Jones Sr., and then there's book 5, China Room by Sunjeev Sahota, which might be actually combating book 2 as one I'd like to read, because this does seem like an interesting premise of this woman who is married and is in a fraught situation, it seems like. She doesn't even know who she's married to. That's particularly freaky, and certainly the interaction at the end with her mother-in-law makes it seem like, it's certainly not a marriage of equals. I don't know, it just seems to me like, banishing her and sending her away means whoever she is to this family is more subservient than not, and there could be some cultural undertones going on in here. And I guess that is one thing that makes me wary, because we're being drawn in by something just so dramatic, and we don't have the full context for it. But that's, I guess, what the rest of the novel will be about, understanding how she got to this place and where she's going to go next, because it does seem like when it comes to a main character with little agency, at least Mehar is trying to take steps to, control what she can control, so you got to give her kudos for that. And finally, for book 6, we have The Promise by Damon Galgut, which, I think this seems, interesting enough. It's also a tragedy, it seems like, where the protagonist, Damor, has been sent away. It seems like, well, possibly her mother is dying, and so it's something she's expecting, but, for most people, it's not necessarily something you can sort of accept right away. So we're kind of in that mindset of, she's dissociating from things, and now she has to leave this sort of way station, which felt like a way station, but now feels like security, and to go with her aunt into this unknown future. And it also seems like she might have a sibling or somebody who cares less, so I guess that's an interesting niggle of a relationship. So yeah, I mean, it seems interesting enough to me, although I don't think it necessarily intrigues me as much as the other 2 stories I've referenced. And technically speaking, I'm probably not going to add any of these to my TBR, because I have so much to read as it is already. But I would love to know your thoughts about these books, if you've read them or if you've not. I've gotten some really interesting comments, especially by people who've read the books and what they've thought about them. So please feel free to reply. And that about covers it for me now. Speaking of weird transitions, I seem to be in the middle of one myself. I am leaving my way station of a temporary furlough. I've been furloughed from my job because of the U.S. federal government shutdown, which has now ended. And so now my employer, because I'm a contractor, has, emailed me to express that my return date will be a couple days after I'm filming this video. So I am transitioning back into the workforce, and I definitely wanted to, get some of this going while I still have more free time available. I'd like to, get this video out. It's always fun to revisit the BookTube prize like this. And otherwise, expect me back on this channel in the next couple of days with my week 3 nano vlog for my other big event this month, which is National Novel Writing Month. And then shortly after that, I will put up an AuthorTube video, particularly the monthly Author's Answer series, where I answer those questions. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you're all doing well with your own reading, and I hope you'll consider joining me as a BookTube Prize judge in 2026 to read some fiction like this and also a variety of nonfiction. And thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.